The Second Amendment has been the subject of so much debate over recent years about whether it protects a right of individuals to own guns for personal protection or a collective right of state militias to organize and to form without federal interference. But what I found in doing my research for Gunfight was that the right to bear arms is one of our oldest, most established constitutional rights regardless of the Second Amendment. Every state has its own constitution, and almost every one of those states protects the right to bear arms in its state constitution. Clearly a right that's not associated with militia service. Some of those state provisions go back to the original founding. Many of them came in the early 1800s and mid-1800s as states joined the Union. They added these provisions into their constitutions. In addition, what I found in researching my book is that whatever you think about the Second Amendment, it's pretty clear that the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which was one of the provisions adopted right after the Civil War to guarantee the freedmen their equal rights, the 14th Amendment was clearly designed in part to protect the right of the freedmen to have guns. Right after the Civil War, racist whites in the South were trying to take away blacks' right to the freedmen's right to have guns for personal protection. And the framers of the 14th Amendment said repeatedly and often that one of the purposes of the 14th Amendment was to protect the freedmen's right to bear arms.
So, again, you have all these historical discussions of over American history on the right to bear arms. What kind of gun control did the Founding Fathers have, or what was their concept of where we would head with personal use and ownership of guns?
Well, the Founding Fathers very firmly believed in civilian ownership of firearms. They didn't believe in a standing army. They were afraid that a standing army would be used corruptly by the president or whoever was governing to run roughshod over the liberties of the people, and thought that a guarantee of democratic liberty was in an armed populace. They believed in the citizens' militia, the idea that when called out to serve, you'd run home, grab your gun, and be prepared to fight in an instant, hence the Minutemen of revolutionary fame. But yet, at the same time, they also had gun regulation. They barred large portions of the population from owning guns, not only slaves, of course, but free blacks were barred from owning guns because they were thought to be a risk to public safety. They might join up with their slave brethren in a revolt against the masters. They also were willing to disarm law-abiding white people, namely loyalists. We're not talking about traitors, people who were fighting for the British. We're talking about what historians estimate were about 40% of the American population who were opposed to the revolution, who thought it was a bad idea taking on the most powerful country in the world, Great Britain. If you did not swear an oath of loyalty to the revolution, you'd be forcibly disarmed. They also had numerous other kinds of restrictions on gun owners that came in the form of militia laws. They declared that any male who's a free male between 18 and 45 was a member of the militia and had to go outfit themselves with their own private firearm. It was their own version of the Obama's healthcare individual mandate, only the framers didn't require you to buy insurance, they required you to go out and buy a gun.
The clip you just watched is of an interview to a famous author. We will be talking about him on Clip 5 today. Mrs. Bear Arms, what do you think of the clip we just saw?
I think that the Second Amendment should be removed with another amendment. I think that it's the cause of many gang-related crimes, and that if we had no guns, this would not happen.
We have a caller on the line who would like to talk to you. Caller, okay. The Second Amendment is one of our founding principles. The gangs would just find the guns from other places, and then innocent people cannot protect themselves. If only the gangs have the guns, this would lead to a whole new wave of violence in which the innocent cannot protect themselves. Mrs. Bear Arms, do you have anything to say in response?
Yes, I do. Caller, if it is harder for them to get a hold of this, foul weaponry, they are less likely to try. Generally, these criminals are poor and unintelligent and only commit crimes because they're too lazy to get a job. If they're too lazy to get an honest job, do you really think they will go to all that extra effort just for some cheap money? No, it is obvious that if we eliminate guns, we will have a better Bostonshire.
No, actually, the poor are not always lazy. They just were never able to get an education or not able to get a good job even if they had a good education. And this is not always because they are lazy. They may have had some family thing going on at the time, so they could not do it. Also, have you ever thought that if we allow guns, people will not think it is cool, so they won't do it? But if they're eliminated, they will think it's cool to steal and kill the weak?
Yeah, right. The poor will never be anything other than lazy slobs who will not pull their own weight in society.
The reason we have this right is stated that we should have guns to protect ourselves and to start an uprising if a bad leader comes into play. Do you have anything to say about this, caller? Yes, I do. I think the framers and the people who came up with the Bill of Rights knew that we might need guns if we ever got into a bad situation. Mrs. Bear Arms?
The framers were a bunch of rich, crazy landowners. They wanted the government to be strong, so they would do stuff to make us weak.
That is not what they had in mind at all. The Second Amendment and all of the Bill of Rights was created for the sole reason of protecting our freedom.
The framers were intelligent men that could do whatever they wanted because of their intelligence.
I personally think they would not abuse their massive intelligence for evil stuff.
You did not know them. They might have been really evil people.
You're right. I did not know them, but I have gotten to know them through stories about them, and I know they would not do something so evil and treacherous. They made the Second Amendment to protect us. That is the end. Now we must go. This was Larry Johnson, reporter for Clip 5, signing off.